The camera off. Mhm.
In progress.
Give it just one more minute before we get started. Roberto, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you fine.
Okay. I don't know if, are you taking a list or are you keeping track of who's on and who's
Yeah,
not?
I'm looking here who's on and who's not.
Okay.
And I can't tell if everyone is here, but I can tell you the majority are here.
Yeah, right. Currently, we've got 68 participants, so we've got a good number.
Yeah. So, what is it? I think you can get started because we didn't train today in purpose so everybody could be here. So
Sounds good.
they shouldn't be here by now. I'm gonna
So,
mute myself unless you need me.
okay, perfect. Good evening, all. So my name is Jason Novice. I'm currently a club coach on the female side at the Clearwater Chargers campus. I've been with the Chargers now for 5 years. And I also played through the Chargers as well growing up. And then with college soccer, I've been in the college game for 5 years now as well, at various schools with St. Leo, Florida Southern. Currently, I'm with Eckerd College. So Roberto had contacted me and wanted to get this going as quickly as possible. We know you guys have a few showcases coming up here in the winter time. So we wanted to get the information out to all of you guys, as well as any other club players here as well and parents. So we can kind of, guide you guys in the right direction. Throughout the call, there may be some college coaches jumping on here and there. Currently, I've got a good buddy of mine, Jimmy Angelis, on the call to help out with some information and give you kind of a different voice as well. So, occasionally we'll have him jump in as well to give some feedback. But the first thing I want to start off with is simply just a video for everyone to watch, kind of explaining, what it takes to be a student athlete and, how it can benefit everybody. So, just bear with us real quick. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
See it okay?
Major takeaways that I took from playing a sport in college
was the value of teamwork and learning to work with others, which is very important in the working world today. And now in graduate school, I have to work with others to finish my work.
Playing sports in college was a great experience. I think everyone should do it. It lets you learn so much more about just your sport, the different levels of play and everything, and you get to meet so many different people. And it just gives you a challenge. It gives you something to do.
I would say that swimming in general and college sports made me who I am. You know, if I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I had, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you today, you know, if it weren't for that. And it also taught me just a lot of valuable life lessons in the long run. So I think that they are important, especially, you know, for people who really need them. And I'm one of those people.
Without having come here and being able to play sport, I wouldn't have been afforded the opportunities, you know, to pursue my tertiary education, to complete my degree. And not only that, just the people I've met and through my sport, the traveling I've done through my sport, the life lessons I've learned through my sport that I've then been able to apply to my academics, to everything else that I've done.
Can everyone hear me okay? Good. So is everyone able to hear that video? Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you. So again, just wanted to share a little bit of, the college limelight of, people sharing their opinions about what it's like playing at the next level and the different opportunities you can build at the next level, it's not just on the field. You develop a lot of personal relationships that you carry on way beyond the soccer field, the tennis court, the football field. So it's definitely something that, everyone I think should, if they are really strong and passionate about playing at the next level, it's something that everyone should, pursue deeply, because it does give you a lot of valuable information and a lot of valuable life lessons along the way. So the one thing I'll start off with is playing collegiate soccer is a dream for many in the US, as well as internationally. But you have to focus on a lot of the fundamental things. And a lot of people, even though they know the fundamentals, just like in any sport or in anything you do, you can neglect the fundamental things and it may hurt you in the long run. I know if you're a player listening to this call, it may sound like a broken record to you. If you're a parent listening to this call, it may be something that you don't stop telling your children or your student athlete. But education is first and foremost the number one thing. It's gonna take you further than any sport professionally will. So doing it for the education purpose is the number one thing you're going to want to do. And focusing on your education is going to be the key to success in life as well. So don't necessarily do this because you're only in it for the sport. Do it for the education as well. There's so many things that can happen. A serious career-ending injury can happen, and now you're stuck with going back to, what do you have to fall on at that point is really what you're looking at. So you want to take both things for granted. Definitely focus on the athletic side of things and preparing yourself mentally, physically, doing all the right steps, but as well, you're going to want to do all the right steps educationally and making sure that, you're really hammering down all those things. So you're prepared for that as well. Because it is a full-time job, playing at the next level and, being a collegiate athlete, it's a full-time job. So you have to be prepared for that. And it starts now. It doesn't start when you first step foot on campus at the college your freshman year. It starts well before that. So properly preparing yourself for that next level is really what it takes. So, a few things with education, you have to improve your grades. Those grades will ultimately help improve your test scores. So taking the SATs, the ACTs, those are all vital. I know now with COVID, there is kind of that judgment of, do you submit the scores? Do you not submit the scores? I think for most schools, they've made it optional. But that also comes with, if you're not going to submit it, then there's other things that you have to go through. So it's always good to make sure you're taking those tests, seeing where you stack up and not really just, leaving them and not doing them. So really, a few things as well for the education. You want to develop a plan on how you can properly hold yourself accountable education wise. Doing it during soccer, a lot of us right now, we have a consistent training basis of Monday through Thursday. And then we have Fridays typically are off. And then depending on the weekend, we may be traveling on Saturday, Sunday to play in, Miami, Jacksonville, out of state. So really being time managed and doing all that stuff really helps you out in the long run. Being able to sit down and organize yourself, with a simple calendar or simple notebook that says what you need to do, what you need to accomplish each day is really going to help you out in the long run. Simple checklists, you can be as simple as 7 to 1 p.m., 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's when you're in school, you're getting all that stuff done. Your focus, your studies, you're in tune with school. After school, you leave and now you're back home 1:30, 2 o'clock. And now you're hitting the books from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. In between that, you can take a small break, get up, get a quick snack, stretch, simple things like that to kind of ease your mind out of just, focusing on school and kind of refresh yourself. But then, again, getting back to the books, grabbing a quick bite before you're out the door for soccer practice at night. And then, you give those guys your full attention at the soccer field, working hard, doing everything they ask out of you, and more. And then, as well, after that, coming back home, finishing your studies, eating your dinner, and then you're off to start it the next day as well. So, it's a lot that you can accomplish in a day, right? But I think just being able to sit down and really hammer home what you need to accomplish each day is really crucial at this stage in your life as a player. Developing that as a high school student was something that, myself, I took for granted. And I wish I would have done a little bit better back then. And I know, now it's a lot easier for me because I constantly write it down of what I need to accomplish. And things change throughout the day. So, you constantly want to have that piece of paper, that notebook, or, whatever it is accessible so you can quickly scratch it out, write it down, and change things as you go. But, with education, just being able to time manage that and making sure, you're getting in the proper time for, your math, your science, your history, your arts, things of that nature. So making sure you cover all those aspects in that time period is really what's going to take you out for a long time. So, just really focusing on the education within that. For us as coaches, I think it's good for us to, always revert back to, how are you doing in school? Asking the player, hey, are you maintaining your grades? Are you seeking help for, a tutor? Are you making sure that you're properly getting your grades aligned? Because first and foremost, like I said, when I go to a college showcase and I'm looking for players, the one thing that's always going to stand out to me is that, that player that's got a good GPA, good test score, because they're doing it for the education purpose and it's not just the athletic piece. Okay. So, make sure you listen to your parents, players, coaches, make sure you're talking to your players about their education as well. Because, that's, again, it's going to go a lot further than what, you know, we can always do athletically. So, you know, make sure you have that backing with education, and you're not having to jump out of a sport and it's now you've got to restart your life for no reason at that point. Okay. So just make sure you're in tune with all that as a player. You know, make sure you're doing the right things at home, studying, you know, asking questions in class, talking to your teachers in school, talking to your counselors to make sure you're on track. You know, it's always going to be the most important thing for you is education. So within that, you know, the next, Jimmy, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add to the education piece with us.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, Jason, thank you for the invite. Yes, I think that you inform, or the information that you give us is extremely important. If you guys look at the average of professional players, at least in the women's side or in the girls side, they play from club to college to professional is very minimum. So that's why I think that education is your first piece, and you should choose the school based on your education before you use it, before you choose it based on soccer. I will add that there's a school for every kid. You just got to find it. You know, I mean, Jason, I've been doing this for 25 years. I think I know Jason for about 10. And we always pick on each other because obviously, you know, we want to know how many players that we recruit or we put in college every year. But it's all about relationships. It's about, Jason mentioned something about your scores and your GPA. I would just add to that remember that the you know, the cheapest recruit for a college coach is the one that is high academic. So that is extremely important because you can be a very good soccer player, but if it's going to cost me a lot of money to bring you into the program, then remember that there's a lot of international kids waiting for that opportunity as well. So those are comparables that, you know, we talk about, we can talk about all day long, but yes, education is primary on this aspect.
Thank you, Jimmy. So next thing, you know, I kind of want to dive into is contacting schools and how do we do that, right? So the big thing is, you know, obviously you're going to want to know, you're going to want to sit down with your parents and your coaches and kind of have an idea of, you know, one, with your parents, what can you afford? You know, it's unrealistic for some families to put down, you know, $30,000 a year for their child to attend school. So it's, you have to have an understanding of, you know, what your parents can help you out with. Then you've got to have that understanding of what level you can play at. You know, it's not just, you know, reaching out to everybody and anybody. You know, like Jimmy said, there is a school for everybody. Don't get distracted on the Division Ones, the Division Twos, the Division Threes, the NAIAs, the junior colleges, right? If you have an opportunity to play at the next level, that's all you need. Okay. And at any point, right, you can reach your highest potential at any level. Okay. You don't have to have the Division One, top 5, Power 5 label to feel you've accomplished something. Okay. Many players go throughout and they don't play at the highest level. It's a slim number. Okay. But they're able to continue and play at the next level and really feel that they've contributed and really feel like they've been satisfied, you know, just with playing at the next level. Okay. So when you're looking at all that stuff and now you're able to make what we call a list. And in your list, you're going to have kind of 3 sections for your list. That top of your list, depending on what time period you are in your recruiting process, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe a little bit smaller. But that top section is what we call the reach section. And that's going to be somewhere maybe as academically, it may be a reach for you. You know, for my case, a Harvard, any type of those Ivy League schools that are really tough academically. You know, it may be a reach for me. Um, or, you know, for um, soccer purposes, it may be a reach for you as a player. Okay, so in that top section, you're going to want to have some schools up there that you're interested in, but understanding that it is a reach and there is a possibility that you may never get there. You know, you may never have the opportunity. Um, they may ask you to only walk on, may not give you any scholarship money. So just with that understanding, you're going to want to have a few of those reach schools and you know, be involved with those as well throughout the process. The next section we call is kind of that bread and butter section. That's where, you know, you're going to do a lot of your groundwork. You know, it's really where you're going to have the most amount of schools, the most, you know, work to do in that section. It's really what's going to make or break you playing at the next level. And really, that section can be anywhere from, you know, 20 schools to 50 schools, depending on what, you know, what time you're starting this list. Okay. So really, you know, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about a lot of these topics in a few minutes. You know, I want to give you some background, some basic general knowledge, and then we'll give you kind of a guideline on when a lot of this should occur. But, you know, just understand that this list is, you know, very, very fluid. Okay. So, you know, that second part is really, you know, what's doable and what's comfortable. Okay. And then that last section for your list is going to be that fallback list. And that's going to be really any school that, you know, locally that you may know a coach, you may know a friend, you may know that academically you're superior. And it's really kind of that fallback list that you just know at the end of the day, if all else fails, you can go to this school, you can play at the next level, or you can go to this school and you can just go strictly for academics. It's okay. You know, so it's really kind of that fallback. But I will say within that, you know, you're not going to want to ignore these schools. You know, just because they're on your fallback list doesn't mean that you completely write them off, right? Because as soon as you write them off, they're just as quick to write you off as well. Okay, so I would say any school that you put on your list, you should be actively talking to on a regular basis. Okay, don't just you know, if you cross them off your list, great, you can take them off. You don't have to communicate anymore. But if they're on your list and you're actively looking at this school, you should constantly be communicating with this school. You know, so that's kind of the breakdown for your list. And within that list, you know, the big thing still is not being unrealistic. Okay. You know, all these coaches that you currently have are going to be very upfront and honest with you. They're not going to sugarcoat things. They're not going to, you know, tell you something that they don't believe in. Okay. Because we want to see you succeed. We ultimately don't want to set you up for failure. Okay. It's not fair to you and it's not fair to us, right? To help you. And then we set you up for failure. Okay. So knowing that, you know, it's a tough conversation to have, right? With your parent about what they can afford, right? But with the coach as well. It's not an easy conversation. And just like it's not an easy conversation for the player, it's a hard conversation for the coach to have, you know, because we want to be brutally honest, right? But we don't want to shoot you down so much that you become discouraged. Okay. So just understand, you know, when you're having that talk with your coach, that, you know, we're here to help you. So ultimately that's our job, is to help you attain anything that you want. Right. But understand the feedback and take it to heart. Right. But understand that at the end of the day, they're here to help you. Right. They're not here to put you down. They're not here to see you fail. Right. They want to help you. They want to see you succeed. So don't take it and say, oh, coach hates me. Right. He doesn't hate you. She doesn't hate you. Right. Ultimately, they have to be honest with you and they have to help provide you with the opportunity to play at the next level. And it's okay if it's not the top of the top. Okay. You know, like we mentioned earlier, there's a place for everybody. Okay, so don't focus on, this player next to you is signing at this school and you have to sign at a school that's equivalent to that. That's not the case, right? Do what's best for you and make sure it's the best scenario for yourself to succeed. Okay. So with contacting, there's 5 time periods that I like to share with people that I think is crucial. The first time period would be at the start of the season, right? So you're going through the season, you're going through summer, you're preparing for the next thing, and you're kind of setting up. And finally, you've got all the information on what's going to happen in the fall. You've got all your league play dates, you've got all your dates for showcases and other things of that nature in the fall. And you're going to want to start an email that says, hey, coach, just want to update you on my upcoming fall. This is where I'm going to be playing on these dates. At this time, I'm wearing this color jersey. This is my number. This is the school I attend. This is my GPA and so on, giving them all that crucial information so they can easily identify you when they come out to the soccer field. And then, going about all that stuff, you can now send that to the coach. Make sure you copy your club coaches. Some of you guys who are much younger, freshman, sophomore, you're definitely going to want to copy your club coach because due to NCAA guidelines, we necessarily as college coaches can't reach out to you. We can reply back to your coach, and then that coach can send that information over to you. But you have all the freedom in the world to contact us. Just with us, we can't necessarily respond back to you. We've got to respond back to either someone at your club that we may know or your actual club coach. Right. So understanding that is crucial. You should always CC or copy at least one staff member of your club team, from your coaching list. I would even do 2 coaches, so potentially your head coach and then someone like Roberto, who's the head of the academy. So, if you play for Coach Andreas, copy Coach Andreas and then copy Coach Roberto as well. So both of them are seeing that you're reaching out to this coach. Both of them can help reach out to that coach as well and give some information about you as a player, about you as an individual. But again, it's just strictly for them to understand where you're looking at so they can help you as well. Okay. So it's very important that within all that stuff, you break it down, you send, the information that's needed, but you're copying coaches at the club level so that if I can't physically reach back out to you because you're not of age, I'm able to respond back to your club coach and then they can help pass along the information as well. Okay.
Jason,
Yes, sir.
real quick, just a question. I know a lot of people spend a lot of money on highlight films and that kind of stuff. I personally, I'm not in favor of it. I never was when I was on the other side. When I was assisting at Ecker, when I worked with national teams, usually when they send you highlight videos, you don't see anything wrong with the player. I'd rather see a full game, or at least a half. What are your feelings about that now that you're at Ecker?
Yeah. So typically, we'll on the first emails that we'll get with that initial contact, the players will send us some type of highlight film. And like Coach Roberto had mentioned, on your highlight film, you're there to stand out. So you're always going to send all the good stuff. Your goals, your passing, your defensive, ability, your shot stopping, if you're a goalkeeper, your distribution and things like that. And all of that is great. But typically throughout the conversations that you'll have with college coaches, at some point, we're going to ask for that full length game or a full half game from you. So it is nice to have, that little clip that's, 3 minutes to about 7 minutes is probably pushing it. But, I typically tell people anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes is good. But again, typically at some point throughout the conversation that we're having, whether it's through email, phone calls or something, things of that nature, any type of contact, we're going to ask for that full length game or a full half, to make sure that, we're seeing the good and the bad. We're not just seeing everything that's fantastic about you. We want to see you off the ball, what you're doing. Are you someone who's constantly involved, even though you're not around the play? Are you someone who's laid back? Are you someone who's making great movement off the ball? You're just not receiving the ball. So there's a lot that we can see off the film or off the ball. And frankly, in the game of soccer, you're touching the ball about 2% of the time, right? You're not touching it, 20, 40, 50% of the time in the game. Okay. So it's just important for us as coaches to see what you're doing off the ball as well. So yes, like Roberto said, it's okay. It's good to send that highlight film. It's good to make those and show us what you're really good at. But, again, it's going to be crucial for us to see if we can't come see you face to face, it's going to be crucial for us to see that half clip of a game or that full clip of a game. So make sure you have both. Don't just make a highlight film and not really show what you look like in a full game setting. Okay. Very good question, Roberto. Thank you. So again, looking at the different times to contact, we just talked a little bit about before the season. Next, this may not pertain to a lot of you guys, but, I just like to mention it, kind of wrapping up the fall part, when players head off to high school sports, when I know it's a little bit different for a lot of you guys. But, just kind of wrapping up that fall season, it wouldn't be a bad time now for you guys as well. Kind of give you guys just a brief little, reset, a rundown of how your fall went. Hey, coach, my team performed really well in the fall. We're looking to continue that in the winter months and move forward. This is the rest of our schedule for the winter months. These are the showcases we'll be attending, and things like that to kind of wrap that up. And give us kind of a rundown of what your winter looks like. For you guys, obviously you guys play throughout the entire 10 months. So it's kind of good for you guys to update us, with any changes that may have occurred from the beginning of the season to this winter time period, and kind of give us that update of, hey, because typically at the beginning of the season, you may not have a lot of the game field locations, the times, especially for showcases that you guys may be attending. You're not going to get a lot of that information until a little bit closer to those tournaments. So it's always good to update those coaches around that time period. The next time period would be after kind of these winter months and right before kind of the big spring push happens. So again, you update them with your spring season or your winter season. You did this, you scored this, any type of film you want to show them that you thought looked really good for you, just to constantly update them with any film in case we can't get out there to see you in person. Constantly just updating these coaches and letting them know, how your season's going, and then giving them, kind of an update of what the next month or two looks like for you. So really it's important to constantly reach out to these coaches. And then that last time period would be, or that second to last time period would be, right before or right at the end of your season, wrapping up the season. You can even include, your end of season film with highlights, but then also identify, hey, I thought I did this really well this year, but throughout the summer months, I'm looking to improve on this and that, right? So you can identify, with your highlights, you did all this stuff really well, but then things you want to work on for the next upcoming season, so that coaches know that you're taking accountability for yourself and for your game. So it's constantly important. And that fifth time period, so we talked about before the season starts, we talked about updating in the winter. We talked about updating after the winter time period. The last one was updating right at the end of the season. And then anytime you head to a showcase or a tournament where there's going to be college coaches. Okay, so I know you guys are coming up soon, attending a college showcase here with the MLS Next program. So, you're going to want to send coaches emails and write down, what you're interested in and how you can do that stuff. So it's important that you're taking this information now, you're running with it, you're making notes, and you're ready to set up. Hey, this is what I want to do. These are the coaches I want to reach out to, and so on. Okay, so one of the questions that was asked was, what is the age that college coaches can talk to you? So it really depends on what level you're reaching out to. It's kind of different for all the levels. For kind of the top two, your NCAA Division 1s and 2s, it's going to be around your junior year. In June, I believe mid-June, I believe it's June 15th is the exact date of your junior year. After that, your Division 3s, your NAIs, your junior colleges, they really don't have a strict timeline. They can reach out to you kind of at any point, and they can talk to you at any point in time, and you can talk to them. Just like I said before, you can reach out to any school at any point, whether you're a sixth grader or you're a senior year. Okay. But just kind of knowing that a lot of these coaches, especially if you're going to talk to, those upper level coaches, you're going to hear a lot of feedback come that junior year, and really not much before. So it's really important to include your club coaches. Okay. And even when you are a junior and a senior, I do encourage to continue to include your club coaches, so that they can help you with that process as well. And also help reach out to those coaches that you're reaching out to, because it's just as important that they're reaching out on your behalf as well. Okay. So that's kind of the time periods, the runaround of, when you should do it, why you should do it. Phone calls, when you're reaching out via phone calls, you have to understand that a lot of us work just as much as your parents work, right? So if you're calling us after you're done with school, there is a high possibility that we're not going to be able to answer. We're running around the school, we're in a meeting with a professor. There's a lot of things that we do, in the office, outside of the office as college coaches. So, leaving information behind for us is crucial for us to get back to you. Again, if it's not in that time period of, if you're not kind of that junior year or beyond, and you're below that, it's still okay to reach out to us with a phone call. But understanding that we can't reach back out via phone call. So leaving your information of, hey, this is my phone number to reach me back at. This is my name. This is the club I play for. This is my club coach. Here's their information. So it's really, being detailed with these messages goes a long way to help you, so that many avenues can help you, whether it's your club coach, whether it's the college coach having the information to reach back out to you. Okay. So, you're not just going to want to be very vague in these messages. You're going to want to include as much information as you can so that they can identify you. So it's really important that within phone calls, if you're having to leave a message, you're including as much information for them to get back out to you as possible. And you're not just, hey, coach, sorry you couldn't make it to the phone call. And that's it. You're going to want to say, hey, coach, sorry I couldn't catch you at this time. Here's my phone number. Here's my email. I'll be reaching out via email as well. Here's my club coach's name. Here's their phone number. Here's their email. I'm looking to call you back at 5 o'clock today. Right. So now they have an idea. They get back to their office. They look at their answering machine and boom, you told them they're going to call them back at 5 o'clock. Now they're looking to set up to see if they can get back to you at that 5 o'clock time period. Okay. So, being very detailed in that information when you're contacting these coaches is very good for you, and it'll help you, and it'll go a long way, and it'll show a lot of character for you as well. Okay. Jimmy, again, is there anything you want to touch upon?
Yeah, I think you give them a whole lot of information, and it's very crucial. Just a few things to add, guys. Remember that part of the process is your communication. So your communication is extremely important. The way you approach the coach, the way you contact with the coach, and one of the things that I wanted to mention is don't forget that we know each other. So if you reach out to one coach and you copy and paste, and then send another coach the same information, more than likely we'll be sitting in the silence, making fun of each other for looking at the same player. So it is extremely important that you remember that kind of stuff. In the boys' side, the recruiting process is a little bit later, I want to say. I'm not sure if, Jason, you compare that with me, but it's more likely that they will be very involved with communication more your senior year, your junior year, at the end of your junior year. And the girls' side is a little bit different. The girls' side, it kind of starts on the beginning of your junior year. Some coaches are very aggressive, and even at the end of your sophomore year, they'll be reaching out to you. So don't be discouraged when you reach out to them and you don't get answers. I will continue to forward. I think that when Jason mentioned communicating with your coaches, I'm a recruiting coordinator for Polk State College, and I do the same job and the opposite end at my club. So every time a kid comes to me and said, hey, I reach out to X school, then I always follow up. And I always say, hey, coach, one of our kids has reached out. Her academics are in this end. She's a good fit for your program. She's talking to other coaches or whatever it is, because it is important. It is important that your club is helping you with that. But like I said, just don't be discouraged if you don't hear right away. Recruiting is a long process, and it's good when you have multiple offers, and then at the end of the day, you'll be able to make your last decision.
Thank you, sir. So something to really touch upon with what Jimmy said. The recruiting process is different for everyone, and even from female to male, the recruiting process is very different. On the male side, like he had mentioned, it's late. It's very late. It's not something that you'll see a lot of kids signing their freshman, sophomore year, verbally committing to schools as a male. Whereas on the female side, you may see that a little bit more with their verbal commitments. Okay. So, be patient, be understanding. Don't just, write things off right away because they don't write back to you. Be persistent, include your club coaches. So that way, like Jimmy had mentioned, a Roberto or an Andreas or a Coach Kevin can reach out on your behalf as well and follow up with your messages so that, we all put everything to good use, and it's not just, things are going, to the wayside because you just merely reached out once and that's all you did. Okay. So, make sure you're doing your due diligence with, copying as both coaches that you have on there. But really, be patient, because every process is different. Okay. So the next thing to kind of talk about is kind of the scholarship stuff. Again, scholarships can go one of multiple ways. Let's see. Oh, touching back on emails and contact, great question from another person on the call. Colleges have multiple coaches. Should emails be directed to the head coach, a goalkeeper coach, or, one of the above? Typically, when you're reaching out to any college, you should include the entire staff. Include the entire staff. If you're someone who's a goalkeeper and they have a label that says goalkeeper coach or assistant coach, goalkeeper coach, if you're a goalkeeper, it's not a bad idea to put that person as the lead in the email and then copy the head coach, the assistant coach, the volunteer assistant coach, and so on. But typically, when you're reaching out to these schools, you're going to want to include as many people on this email as possible so that, there is the time that the head coach doesn't see it, but the assistant coach sees it and they're intrigued by your email, right? So then they're going to say it to the head coach and now they're going to have that dialogue, right? So as many people as you include on the email, right, it's much more beneficial and it's a good thing for you in the long run, right? So when you look at these rosters and you're looking at the coaches on X team or whatever it may be, you're going to want to include all the coaches that you can on the college side and then include your club coaches as well so they can help up with the follow process, right? So thank you for that question. Another great question. But next thing, scholarships. I know that's kind of the big talk of, what we can do scholarship wise and things like that. Understand a few things, right? Realistically, there's no such thing as a full ride. Okay. And I know people get hung up on, full ride this, full ride that. Realistically, it doesn't happen. Okay. So when you're talking to your buddy or your parents are talking to another set of parents and they say, oh, we got a full ride to so-and-so. Okay. You don't have to call them out on it, but just understand that it's realistically something that doesn't happen very often. Okay. So when it comes to scholarships, depending on the level, right? So for instance, Division III is strictly academic only, right? There is no athletic scholarship available. Okay. So when it comes to Division III, right, they're looking for kids who have those high GPAs, those good test scores, that are academically very strong, because they don't have the athletic money to back it up. Okay. So when you're looking at one of those schools at the Division III level, right, it's something that, academically you're going to want to succeed and do very well in, because the better you can do academically, right, the more money they can give you from a school standpoint, right? So the less you have to pay or your parents have to pay, right? Because at the end of the day, the job is to pay as close to zero as possible, right, for all of us. Okay. And understanding the different types of scholarships, the aids, the grants, okay, we can get, it's very important. Okay. And someone who's going to be crucial in this is talking to your guidance counselors at school, right? Because they're going to be able to help you with all the information from the backside of the different applications you need to fill out for scholarships or grants or any type of financial aid. Okay. So talking to them and, they'll be able to help you out with finding, $500 here, $500 there, $3,000 here. Okay. So be constantly active talking to your guidance counselors about those types of things. But when you look at the different levels, so you look at the Division I's, the Division II's, okay, they're what they call, there's a difference between a head count and an equivalency. Okay. Can anyone on this call kind of touch upon, besides myself or Jimmy, on the head count versus the equivalency? Does anyone have an idea on what that might entail?
Jason, are you referring to the scholarships?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so my understanding is the headcount depends upon what the school entails. So if the school For example, if the school is forcing the coach to have 30 kids, then that will be your head count. So it's more administrative than anything else. But that was my understanding. I could be wrong.
Yeah, there's a few ways to look at it. So there's the way of looking at it like that with, from an administration level, the coach is given a number that the school wants them to meet. And then from a coaching perspective, they've got to meet that number to build up revenue, right? There's also the sports side of head count versus equivalency. And to simple terms for that would be looking at football, for instance, at the Division I levels, right? So all those big programs with your Alabamas, your Georgias, your Florida States, University of Floridas, LSU's, Oregon's, and so on, right? Those are what we call a head count sport as well, right? So within those have a certain number of scholarships, right? And within those, you've got, X amount of players on your roster, right? So in more of those sports, I believe Division I basketball and on both men's and women's, and one or two other sports as well apply to that as well for the head count. But it's not something that's broadly encompassed. So just understand that if it's a head count, really it doesn't pertain to soccer, okay? Because most of your soccer's schools are what we call, equivalency. The coaches have X amount of scholarships, and they've got to equally divide it up between the number of players on their roster. And some of the players on that roster don't get any of the money at all from the scholarship. So just understanding that you may not get any money the first year as a freshman. That's okay. There is what we call walk-ons. Okay. So just understanding that, you come in as a walk-on, that doesn't mean you're not going to get any playing time. I was at a school where we had a total of 7 walk-ons. 3 of them were freshmen, and all 3 of those players played significant amount of minutes for us as a freshman, right? So at the end of the year, those were the first people we attended to when it came to getting them money for the next season, okay? Because scholarships work on a year-to-year basis for the most part, okay? So really, it's important to understand that the difference with all these things, but really understanding that a scholarship, once it's given to you, it's very hard to take away. You're going to have to be, a bad student. You're going to have to do something to get yourself expelled, kind of. It's not very easily taken away from you. Okay. So if a college commits to you with money, and you're going through the process, and, all those things are done, and you're at the college and you're playing and all that, it's very hard to take that money away from you. It can happen. That's why we talk about the education piece. You're going to want to make sure that the education comes first as well. You want to make sure in college you're doing all the right things. Okay. So, but understanding when it comes to scholarships at the different levels, we can do what we call stacking. So with stacking, that goes back to the education piece. Okay. So if you meet the requirements for us to stack, and most of the time it has to do with test scores and GPAs and things like that, your school grades and other things that you're meeting. So within that, if we can stack, we can give you both. We can give you the athletic money or the athletic scholarship, and then you can also get academic money from the school. Okay, so that really brings that number a lot closer to 0. But if you don't meet some of the requirements, for instance, you don't meet the entry level requirements as a player to get into our school, then really what you're going to have to decide between is the athletic money or the academic money. And typically you're only going to be able to have one or the other. So for instance, if you're getting $10,000 academically and only $7,000 athletically, you're going to have to take the academic money, that's $10,000, and the athletic money that was offered to you is no longer going to be available because we're not able to stack it. Okay, because you don't meet the requirements. So simply understanding that is crucial, right? So that's why we constantly harp on the education piece, right? So understanding all of that is very crucial. Um, Again, with looking at that, if you're someone who's knows going into this process that it's going to be hard for you to constantly find money. Again, talk to your guidance counselors. They have a plethora of different avenues for you to apply, different applications, different ways for you to get money. Even talking to the counselors at the college or university you may be attending. They'll be able to help you out with grants, aids, and all that stuff to help that bottom line hit zero. Okay. So constantly making sure that bottom line gets closer and closer to zero is really what you're looking for. So that way that, when it comes to paying for school, it's not, you're paying $10,000 out of pocket a semester, right? You're looking more at, $2,000 a semester or, less than that, right? So realistically, can you get that number smaller and smaller? Okay. Does anyone have any immediate questions about scholarships? Jimmy, do you have anything you want to touch upon with the scholarships?
No, I think you were good about scholarships. Just a general understanding, guys. Like if you pick a JUCO or a junior college to go to, more than likely they will have the most soccer scholarships because remember they have to recruit every year because they once they become sophomores, then they'll go. So for somebody that is um, financially in need, maybe a junior college will be a good option. Your NAIA, they will have some options and some help. The D2s, the D3s, like they were telling you, like Jason was saying, there's only academic money. But with that academic money, they give you very other benefits that you'll be able to accommodate with those. I would suggest that you put everything on your prayer profile. Just to give you an example, Drew and Parker College in Georgia and the girls side, if you have a role, like a leading role at your church, they will add $2,000 to your scholarship. So it's a free scholarship that is there that you can actually utilize if you want to. So put all the information you can in your prayer profile because you never know, you can get other benefits. But no, I think you did it good with the explanation of the scholarships.
Thank you, sir. Right. So, again, any amount of money helps. Okay. So constantly reaching out, for us at the club at the Chargers, there's a few scholarship opportunities for you as a player. So talking with your coaches through that, one of the ones that I think of on the top of my head is what we call the Lifetime Charger Award. If you're played here since the very beginning of your playing career, and you came all the way through the process, all the way up until senior year, we reward you for that. Being someone who's going through the entire process with us, being loyal to the club. It's something we really want to help you with. And we really appreciate your loyalty. So, that's another, $1,000 potentially that you can add to yourself as well. So just there's so many scholarships and aids and grants out there. You just have to do the work behind it to find it. Okay. Again, I can't stress this enough. You're going to want to pay as little to no money throughout your 4 years of college. You want to get out of college with as little debt possible. Okay. So really making that bottom line zeros is crucial. Okay. Yeah, and really what I want to finish off with is kind of a timeline of when things kind of matter and, what to look for in those years of different, high school levels. Okay. So before we talk about that timeline, is there any questions I can answer? So one of the questions that was just on here is there any advantage to recruitment to players who have Florida prepay? So Florida prepay is something that really only pertains to a lot of the Florida schools. So there's advantages and disadvantages to it. Obviously, the advantage to going to a Florida school, you get your Florida prepaid money, and typically, if it's helping out with tuition or it's helping out with room and board and things like that, it's potentially money that at the end of the day you may get back to the child, to help them out with day-to-day needs, whether it's Starbucks or mac and cheese or whatever it may be throughout the day. But typically Florida prepay really only pertains to Florida schools. There is some that have been evolving in the Southeast that want to be competitive, that have started to kind of accept bright futures and prepaid and things of that nature, or have something equivalent that you would qualify for on their side of things in the Southeast. But again, it's very individualized, and it's not the entire Southeast, or it's not the entire state, United States. So it's something that you're going to want to reach out to the individual colleges that you're talking to once you're going through that process, and really ask them, hey, is this something you guys take? Okay. So again, it's very individual. Okay. One of the mentions in here with Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Georgia, Valdosta State all take Florida prepaid. So that there is options outside of Florida that you should be aware of. But again, it's something that when you're talking to these coaches and you're talking to these universities and colleges, you're going to have to ask them the individual question of, hey, I've got Florida prepaid. Does this apply to you, or do you have something equivalent to it? Okay. So, it's a great question, and it's something that obviously all of us who have that growing up for our children, we want to obviously use it. We don't want it to go to waste, but we have to understand that, we've got to see those colleges, or we've got to ask those universities and, understand, if that's something that's really going to be a part of the decision, right? It's got to be weighed in. It can't be something at the end that, hey, son, I can't help you out if you're going to choose this school because it doesn't help out with the Florida prepaid. Telling your child that, hey, we've got Florida prepaid. It'd be a good idea for you to look, primarily in Florida, but also in the Southeast with, different schools, but also reach out to the schools and see if they have something equivalent or they take Florida prepaid. Okay. So, it's a great question, but it's something that I can't necessarily answer to the full of my abilities, because it's very individualized when it's outside of the state of Florida. Okay. But again, it's not something that if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world. So really there is, it helps you guys from a financial aspect. Okay. But if you don't have it, it's not something that, puts you behind the 8 ball kind of a thing. Okay. So, great. Another great question. Thank you. And thank you, Thomas, as well, for sharing some of the schools that include those prepaid options as well. Roberto, do you know if the Gallagher's mom is on the call?
No, she cannot. I was just texting her now. She
Okay.
cannot make it.
All right, no worries.
But she says that if anybody wants to give her a call, send her an email. And let me give you a little bit of background. Mrs. Gallagher had 2 kids that played all the way through in the Chargers. Ryan, who is now at Providence, and Colin, who will graduate this year and is going to Virginia. I know that that particular family, and Michelle in particular, put in a lot of work, a lot of time, contacting colleges and doing all the things that you need to do to prepare. And she's done an incredible job. And that's why she wanted to share that with everyone. So if you have any questions about what you can do as a parent, she's probably the person you want to reach out to. And let me know. I'll be more than glad to share her email with you.
Yes, thank you. And as well, with Mrs. Gallagher, I'm with the Chargers. So, if it's something that you've got an immediate question and you want to shoot to Roberto or to one of your coaches of Andreas, Coach Kyle, Coach Joe, Coach Mario, don't be afraid to reach out to them. And if they don't have the answer, they'll definitely reach out to me. My line is available to all of you as well, with email, text message, phone call. So don't hesitate to ask us questions, because, like Jimmy had mentioned earlier, we all talk. So if I don't know the answer, I may reach out to Jimmy, or I may reach out to another colleague and say, hey, this parent asked me this question. Can you help me out? Right. So, at the end of the day, everyone is here to help you. Right. But just be open and willing to ask the question, and I think that's the key part is, being open and really, asking the important questions, because not everyone knows everything. No, I don't know everything. Roberto doesn't know everything. We're all here to help each other. Okay. And that's really the important part behind all of this. So just to go forward with the timeline, I don't want to hold you guys up too long tonight. So looking at things, freshman year as a high school student, really there's not a lot to look at. Obviously you want to start, doing well in soccer and academics, and, making sure you're starting off on the right foot, because it's never good to start off academically, down the 8 ball. So, you definitely want to make sure you start off freshman year education purposes on a high, right? Because when you start off on the low end of things, it's hard to recover. Okay. It's not that it's impossible, right? But it's hard. It's difficult, right? So making sure that you start, on a good platform, on a good stage, your freshman year is very crucial. So really, making sure all that stuff is in line, and then doing all the necessary things soccer wise to get yourself better, your fitness level, touching the ball, going outside with friends, and just kicking the ball around, or, throwing a football, whatever the case may be. Okay. But being active and constantly, focusing on your education is what you need to do your freshman year. Sophomore year, you're going to have that same education piece, right? Keep your grades up. Don't, slack off. Don't put education last, after social and athletics. Make sure it's your priority. But this is when you're going to want to start compiling that list that we talked about. And this is when your list is going to be at your biggest, is in your sophomore year, right? You're going to want to think of your interests, right? So for me, when I was looking at all the schools that I wanted to attend, I didn't want a big university. I didn't want a big college. I was someone who, dealt better in a smaller atmosphere, right? I couldn't see myself sitting in an auditorium with 500 other students and doing well. Okay. So understanding how you learn, right, is also crucial to this piece. Okay. But, obviously you're going to want to, does your school offer football, right? So you can go attend a football game or something like that. What's the scenery look like, right? Because at the end of the day, right, you're going to have to picture yourself living at this campus, at this college, at this university, potentially for the next 4 years, right? So it's going to be somewhere where you want to live for 4 years at least, if not longer. Okay. So understanding your interests and researching the academics, the athletics is crucial in your sophomore year, to kind of understand, what you're going to line yourself up with. Okay. Other things to do your sophomore years, take a PSAT test, right? So to kind of understand your baseline test scores for things of that nature moving forward. Writing a cover letter potentially, or a soccer resume, and kind of sending out emails to schools at this time period is good. Parents, for you guys, looking at the NCAA Eligibility Center is crucial. It's something that you've got a lot of information that you have to put into. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of financial stuff that you're going to have to dig into. So really, I encourage parents to look at the NCAA Eligibility Center as early as sophomore year. It'll only help you when it comes later on down the road, and you're just updating information. You're not starting something for the first time. Okay. And then after that, obviously selecting the right junior courses that you have to take for your school, playing at the highest level you can potentially play at. And then, obviously it's always nice to keep stats of athletic achievements for yourself. It's not necessary, it's not needed. Okay. But it's always good to have in the back of your mind of, your athletic achievements. Okay. Junior year, again, I'll harp on it again, your education, right? Continue to keep your grades up, continue to take the test. My recommendation for test taking junior year is to take about 3 tests. Okay. And that can be a combination of 2 SATs, 1 ACT. You can take all SATs or all ACTs. Really it's what you do better in. But the reason I say this for you for junior year is we all know there's so much going on your senior year, right? You don't want to consume yourself with adding additional pressure with these types of standardized tests on a weekend. Okay. When, you should be focusing on something else, or you need to pay attention to something else, or you simply just want to be, a kid at the end of the day on the weekend and not have to sit in a test room for 5-6 hours. Okay. So I think it's very important as a junior to really get a hold of these tests, and start to knock them out of the park, and take them as much as you can. A lot of your schools offer them for free, right? So certainly sign yourself up. Don't miss out on a free opportunity to take a test. Okay. It's crucial. Okay. Then obviously, going through those 4 time periods of emailing those coaches, and then as well as emailing them before the showcases that you attend, and then organizing those things, right? So you're going to want to keep some type of organizational file system of you reaching out to coaches, them getting back to you, and, thinking of all those things. And because the worst thing you can do is, send something to somebody and then you completely forget, and they're calling you and it's like, oh yes, and you start to stutter and you start to forget about little things when, you reached out to them 2 days ago. Simply, hey, you can keep a simple dialogue on a Excel spreadsheet, and it's reached out to X university on this date via email, right? And you put it to these coaches. Okay. So that way, when you get that email back, you can quickly look at your spreadsheet, right? You can go back in your email log, right, as you're talking to these coaches, and you can create that dialogue that's effective and efficient. Okay. So just be sure that, it's something that, you're constantly being organized with. And then, continue with your list, crossing them off, right? It's going to be a long process to cross these lists off. Okay. But you have to do it. You've got to do the work behind it. It's a lot of work. Okay. It's a lot of work, right? So it's not going to be handed to you. Okay. And that's the one thing that I know a lot of players that I grew up playing with kind of fell into that bubble. They thought it was just going to be handed to them. So they didn't end up playing at the next level, right? If you really want to play at the next level, it's a lot of work that you have to do. Okay. So just making sure that you're up for it and you're constantly being aware of what you have to do, what you need to do, and things like that. Okay. So
Hey, Jason, question here. Do you have any advice on how to select the right soccer ID camps? And
yes.
when should the players attend those camps? Can I say one thing real quick with ID
Yes,
camps?
sir. Mhm.
Be careful where you go. I would say go to the camps of schools you really have an interest in, because a lot of these ID camps are no more than a soccer cup for the colleges. And you have to be careful in where you go and who you choose to, which camp you choose to attend to. Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
You're good. Yeah. So with looking at ID camps and other things of, outside of showcases, the best general idea for you would be, if you're not 100% about this camp on your list, right, not to attend, right? If it's not number 1, number 2, number 5 on your list, right, it's best that you don't attend if it's just them as an individual camp, right? If it's someone like Jimmy, for instance, on this call, he hosts an ID camp, but he invites multiple colleges to his ID camp, right? And he gets upwards of 5 to 10 coaches at a time at an ID camp, right? Something like that is when you're going to get the most amount of money, or your most amount of exposure for your money. Okay, so attending an individualized ID camp is really going to be for when you're at the end of your recruiting process and you're needing help narrowing down that list. Okay, but before that, right, you're going to want to attend more of the broader ID camps that have the multiple attendance from college coaches. It's kind of from those third-party ID camps that I'm sure you guys get multiple emails from all the time. Okay. So another great question. Another question we have on here, going back to highlight clips. Do you go back from freshman year to present year, or is it more important to include current highlights? I've known in the past, so there's kind of a few ways to do it. In the past, there's been players who have sent us, 4 individual highlight films, and it's freshman year's highlight film, sophomore year, junior year, etc. And then there's others who just send the current one. Really, there is no right or wrong answer. It's include to see. It's good to see, but it's really your preference. It's not really going to hurt you or not. So it's really just the preference of the person sending the email. We get plenty of emails a day, so we're accustomed to seeing the different types of highlight films, but you don't have to send all of them. It's okay if you just send what's most current for that. And again, attending ID camps, when you should attend them, really, if you can attend it, and it's an open weekend for you, it's great to attend it. Talking to your club coach as well, asking them, hey, this is the ID camp that I got information from, is it great? Is this a good one to attend? And if they don't know the answer, I'm sure they can reach out to me as well. But again, it's one of those that, has, you're going to get thousands and thousands of emails from all these different out sources. So it's really, finding the best fit for you. But I do recommend that if you're not 100% sure about this is in your top 5, then it's most likely not beneficial for you to attend. Let's see. Do you have a software program you recommend to make highlights? So there's not really one that I prefer. for highlights. You don't need an elaborate platform to make a highlight film. There's a lot of people who do a lot of great highlight films by themselves with YouTube and simple software programs that are free to you, whether it's different things on PowerPoint or Keynote on MacBooks and things like that. You don't have to put the money into an expensive software program to make a highlight film. So it's really simple. It's really easy. It's not a lot of work to do. But just simply doing it is the hardest part, simply getting started. Okay. So you don't have to put the money into a software program or, do all that. It's really just starting it is the hardest process. Any suggestions for how best to research schools and coaches? Yeah, it's a lot going back to, what you like, what your interests are. Some people, want to get out of Florida. So, they look at other cities that they potentially like. Other people, like I mentioned earlier, like the bigger schools versus the smaller schools. You're going to want to look at what your interests are first before you start making your list. And you may not know the answers to a lot of that until you start looking at other schools. The best thing you can do, right now is when you have a weekend off from soccer is drive to your nearest campus, your nearest university, your nearest college, and go look at what that school offers, what that school has. And that will kind of give you an idea. Obviously you may not be able to sit in a class or, something like that, but just simply walking around the school, signing up for open houses that they offer is another good way to look at those schools and research those schools, but also having an idea potentially of what you may study in the future. It's okay to be undecided. For instance, for me, I decided at a young age, I wanted to kind of go the criminal justice criminology route. And by the time I finished college, I finished off with, I wanted to start off with forensic psychology. That was kind of my big thing when I was younger, was forensic psychology. But by the time I finished with a degree in criminology. Okay. So, it's really, researching and things like that. It's going to come off your interest. So understanding your interest first is really what's going to help you kind of decide and research those schools. Another question we had was, do you have to play in MLS Next or ECNL to get recruited? No. There's kids across all levels. Like we had mentioned earlier, there's a school for you, right? There's a school out there for you, and you don't have to have any type of, league affiliation or anything like that to you, right? The best thing you can do is have the proper coaching, the proper background knowledge, the understanding, the help that you need throughout the process. Okay. So, you don't have to have all the fancy letters or whatever you want to call it. It's great. It helps you perform at the next level. Obviously you playing at your highest levels, what you need, right? So if your highest level is MLS Next or your highest level is ECNL, whatever it may be, right? It's at the end of the day, what's going to help you is playing at the highest of your ability. Okay. So, if your ability is at the CDL level, it's at the CDL level. Don't fret, don't be discouraged. You'll still find a place for you to play. So, a lot of great questions. And hopefully, we're providing you with, some helpful answers here. And just to quickly, go back to that summary in your senior year. So looking at your senior years, obviously finishing strong with your academics, checking your status with the NCAA eligibility center, narrowing that list down to 5 schools, right? It's a lot easier to make a decision with a smaller list. Okay. So, bringing that list and really looking at it and narrowing it down throughout the different processes, will help you. Visiting those schools, it's important to go there and visit the school, and see if it's somewhere you want to be. I had great conversations with different college coaches all across the United States, but there's a few that I went to that I just didn't like the school. I didn't like the atmosphere, and that's okay. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with these coaches as well. If it's something that doesn't suit you, it doesn't suit you. Okay. And that's okay. Right. And then obviously completing your FAFSA so you can look at that information so you can see what you're going to get from a financial aid standpoint as well. And then responding immediately to any coaches. When they send you emails, don't let them go on for weeks and weeks. Respond back to those emails right away. Schedule your visits, stay in touch with your guidance counselors, narrow down the choices that you make, keeping coaches updated and, constantly providing the different things, and obviously the last thing is just making a decision, sitting down with your parents, sitting down with your club coaches, making sure it's the right decision and really, making sure that it checks all the boxes for you, because at the end of the day, it's the next step into, your next chapter in life. Right. So, you want to make sure it's something that you feel comfortable, you feel confident in. Okay. Jimmy, is there anything you want to end off with sharing with us?
No, I think it's been a great meeting where you get a lot of information, but it's one of those themes that you start talking and you cannot stop.
Yeah.
So, but to be honest with you guys, there's a lot of information that you can gather. There's a lot of resources that you can gather. Sometimes we look too far away when the answer or the solution is close to home, and the kids will change their major 100 times. I can tell you that much. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in different programs, and I will tell you that my experience with recruiting, I think each individual player will have their own experience. Some of them will be very quickly, and you guys will be without stress. And some of them will be as long as their senior year, and you will be stressing because you want them to make a decision. But as long as you take it all in, and as long as you utilize the resources, I think the answers will be right there for you. The majority of the college coaches community are very helpful, very, very helpful. We all know each other, especially here in Florida. We all know each other, and we reach out to each other for different things. And we know, we see each other at ID camps, we see each other at showcase and stuff like that. So don't be discouraged if you don't hear from them. Reach out to somebody else. We'll try to find you an answer. I can tell you that, working with Jason and Clearwater and others like Orlando City, FKK, those are guys that I, reach out to sometimes because they have those contacts. So like I said, I think the resources are there. You just got to do it the right way and be patient and know that this is a long ride and it's going to be a roller coaster. At times it's going to be good. At times you're going to be happy, and at times you don't. One of the things that I want you to understand is I have players that always told me, Coach, I'm going to go play at FSU. I want to go play at UF. And they ended up going to a D3 school where I academically fit for them, and they love it right now. And they graduate from them, and they wear the colors of that college. I think the college experience, we build it ourselves. Each kid will have their own college experience. So, and be realistic when you pick. Don't, if I can pay $100 every time a kid told me that she was gonna play at UF, and it didn't happen because there's some schools that you probably never heard of, and they're academically very strong. So I would suggest that you guys do your research. There's a ton of information online. As far as the ID camp, what I wanted to point out about what Jason was saying, the only suggestion I have is if you are in your freshman year, sophomore year, go to those multiple college coaches ID camps because you're gonna get a lot of resources there. You're gonna get to meet a lot of people. If you're in your junior year and you know for sure you know where you're gonna go, then go target that. If actually is the way you want to go target, be seen, make sure they know your name. And if you don't yet at your senior year or your junior year, continue to go to those ID camps. Be selective because think about your budget as a parent, right? So you're probably going to spend between $200 to $300 on an ID camp. So let's say the freshman years they do 3, sophomore year they do 3, junior year they do 3, and their senior year they do 2. Then you're going to spend a lot of money on ID camps and no answer. So fill up your resources, figure out what you can do, reach out. I know that Jason mentioned that he can be a resource. I want to put my name there. So if you guys need anything from me or if there's anything that I can help answer some questions, I'll be happy to do that for you. But no, thank you so much for the invite, Jason. I hope that I was helpful enough. I want to apologize for the background. I'm on my son's first high school game, and he's a sophomore, so we're excited, but I didn't want to mess around with Jason and how I'm going to have to pay for his dinner. But thank you so much for the invite. And like I said, if there's anything I can do to help, please reach out to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate it.
Jimmy, thank you. Appreciate it very much. Appreciate your time. Thanks a million. Best of luck.
Thank you, Roberto. Same to with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jason, thanks a million.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And if anything, just reach out to us and we're here. Have a good evening, everyone.
Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.